Welcome to Prime Life. We call it Retirement 2.0. Leave each episode with tips and new ideas to help you navigate retirement in our new age. It's your time. Make it count.
This podcast is for educational purposes only. It is not intended as medical, investment, or financial advice. We do not sponsor or endorse any of the individuals, companies, products, or services featured on this podcast. Any statements or opinions expressed are of the individual who makes them. We hope you enjoy the episode.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Prime Live podcast, Living Longer, Living Better. And we're here today with Howard Fero. He's a very, very, very interesting man. He's a professor of management and leadership and the director of the Master of Science in Management and Organizational Leadership program at Albertus Magnus College here in New Haven, Connecticut. He's got lots of other things on his CV. He's an author, so I'm going to let you, Howard, talk about kind of what you're up to today, and then we'll dive into the questions.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much, Mary. I'm very excited to be here with you and obviously with your audience. So as you said, I am the director of the graduate leadership programs at Albertus Magnus College in New Haven, Connecticut. Been there for about 23 years now. Also a professor of management and leadership there. And when I'm not there, I'm out talking to folks all over the country about leadership and talking to people in for-profit organizations and nonprofit organizations and law enforcement and really running the gamut of different types of organizations about how they can lead themselves and lead their teams most effectively. Because honestly, leadership is for everyone at every age, at every level, and anywhere you can imagine. Because the things that make us effective people are what make us effective leaders. And I'm looking forward to sharing all my ideas with your audience, Mary.
I'm interested as well. Let's start with the basics. How do you define leadership? And how does that find its tentacles in all of the things you mentioned? Again, we think of leadership, we think of corporate, you think of, companies, but I know there's a lot more than that. So please do explain that to our audience.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that a platform that I stand on very strongly is that leadership is not about position. It doesn't matter if you're the vice president of an organization or the CEO or the director or anything else. It's how you act. And quite often in organizations, the people who are lower down the rungs of position tend to be better leaders than the ones at the top. And that's because what they're doing is they're trying to help their friends, their teammates, their colleagues to accomplish goals. And really, that's what leadership is about. It's about how do we move the needle? How do we take what we're trying to accomplish individually as a team in an organization and do it better? And we do that by establishing relationships with the people that we're working with. We do that by establishing trust. We do that by putting together a program set full of goals that's going to help everyone to move forward. One of the things that's so important to think about is when you're in an organization, if you're following somebody just because they're the boss, right? Because they're the manager, because they're the positional leader, you're going to do just enough to get the job done and not get fired. But if you're following them because they're leading you, because they're inspiring you, because you believe in what they're trying to accomplish and what the organization is trying to accomplish, you're going to do so much more. And that's one of the lessons that we talk about in the Master of Science in Management and Organizational Leadership at Albertus. It's one of the lessons that I talk about through all my keynotes and workshops and trainings and coaching with people, because it's really a change in the paradigm that we have about, as you said, Mary, that leadership is about the position and about an organization. It's not. It's who we are. And thinking about what makes us successful through our communication, through our outreach, through our inspiration, and really how to kind of mold ourselves into the most effective people we can be.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I heard you say something that I find fascinating, which is maybe individuals that are lower down the ladder, if you will, tend to be a little bit more driven to help their colleagues or those around them. Why is that?
Well, I don't want to discount the leaders at the upper ends of the organization also, and perhaps that didn't come out as well as it should have. What I should have said is that everyone is a leader, because that's something that I really do believe. But to your point and to your question, yes, people who are developing themselves, people who are still looking to grow and become stronger, those are the ones who quite often have the ear to the podcast, and they're listening to things, and they're reading books, and they're going to workshops, and they're looking to get better and better. Now, I work as an executive coach, and I quite often try not to use the term executive coach because it's not just for executives. It's really a leadership coach. I'm really a leadership coach who helps people to find their passions and kind of create a roadmap for success. So to your point, Mary, why are the people who are kind of lower in the organization most interested in that is because they want to move up in the organization and they want to be able to contribute more and more. And the skills that we talk about in both in the master's program and in my personal work, that's what it's about. It's like, how can we create an environment where people can thrive? And that's something that starts at the top of the organization and really goes to every level, no matter what age you are, no matter what position you're at, and no matter what industry you're in.
So we have many folks, I think, on the podcast that talk about a couple things, that talk about living with purpose. What's that final chapter? I shouldn't call it final chapter. What's that next chapter in their life? There are many individuals, well, I shouldn't say many, they're comfortable in their careers. And they may say, now what? Or those individuals that say, okay, I'm thinking about retirement, but I don't want it to be really retirement. I want it to be where I do something that really just inspires me and something maybe I've always dreamed of, but maybe haven't had the opportunity or the courage. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. And we always want to live our life with purpose. And it's something that I talk about a lot in terms of kind of understanding how your purpose and your vision and your goals fits into that of an organization. And when you ask me that question, Mary, the first word that comes to my mind is legacy. Is what is the legacy that we want to leave personally as well as professionally? And I'm going to tell you a quick story just because it's something that happened to me probably about 2 years ago. And I actually talk about this in my newest book, Leadership in 5G. And so I was in Costco, my favorite store. I was in Costco a couple of years ago with my younger son, who I believe was about 12 or 13 at the time. And we're walking around the store and we come to the paper towels, those big pallets of paper towels in the corner of Costco. And a woman takes a big paper towel bundle and another one falls. And I go and I pick it up and put it up on the shelf. And I hear a voice behind me saying, "Oh, that's great. Good job." And I said to my son, let's just keep walking. And I hear, again, a very loud, bellowing voice. And he says, great job a couple of times. Then he says, well, that's great leadership. And at that point, my tentacles went up and I turned around and I saw the gentleman standing there. He was a big, towering man. And I didn't recognize him at first. He had lost some weight. He had gotten older. I taught him about 15 years ago in the Masters of Leadership at Albertus. And he didn't look at me. He looked at my son. And he said, "Your dad changed my life." And I started getting the chills. And I said, thank you. And he started going on and saying how, he wasn't sure what he was going to do. And he didn't know if he was going to even be accepted into the master's program in leadership. Mm-hmm. And I accepted him in after an interview because there were some reasons that we thought about it. And I spoke to him about this as well. And after the program, he did great in the program. And he went on and had a very successful career and is now retired, actually. He was close to retirement, actually, when he went through the program. And the way he spoke to my son and the way that it made me feel made me realize how important legacy is and how important it is that everything we do, we need to not think about doing it for that reason alone, but think about the impact we're having. Think about the impact we're having on the people who we work with, the people who, work with us, the people in our family, in our lives, in our communities, and think about what we can do more and more of to have that impact and really be able to change the world, change our small world and our area, and think about how we can provide the best guidance for the people around us.
Well, I love that story. I'm sure you have many more of that. That really is inspiring, especially since you're on Prime Life podcast to talk about, you said that gentleman was maybe more near retirement, or as I like to say, on the back nine.
Yep.
But there he was willing to go through a graduate program at that point to just improve himself. When you're a lifelong learner, you're a lifelong learner. And I love that. My husband's actually 4 years older than me. He's in the back nine, but he's had several careers. He's a teacher and a coach. And he decided he wanted to get his PhD in education technology, so in EDD. Mm-hmm. And there are people that look at him with like he has 5 eyeballs.
That's-
When he says that, exactly, they say, why are you doing this? And he said, well, I've always wanted to do something like this. And I think, again, when you're a lifelong learner, you tend to experience, again, wanting to maybe learn different techniques. You want to get perspectives from different people and whatnot. What have you found to be, in your time doing this at Albertus Magnus, what have you found to be perhaps a little bit of surprising to you? And then I want you to talk a little bit about your book. Certainly, we will put that on in the show notes. So if individuals are interested in purchasing a copy, they certainly can. But that's what I would love to hear about.
Yeah. So, I always find it so heartwarming when people are going through a graduate program and they are later in life and they have had their career and they've learned so much through their experience. And now they want to take the experience they have and see what it really means, right? And see how the things that they've been doing right, the things maybe they haven't been doing right, or the things they just want to do better. And you use the word lifelong learner, and I love working with people like that because they're there for the right reasons. Not that, I love working with everybody because I love sharing leadership. But when people are coming in because they really want to learn, they want to develop, they want to say, well, what can I do better? And it's something I take a lot of pride in the Masters of Leadership at Albertus, in the sense that we design the program not as a business program, but it's really a personal development program. It's great when you walk across the stage at Rosary Hall and you get your diploma, but really what you're getting is the ability to be better, the ability to do better for your community. And it's not just about the business, it's about the community. And I always say my goal in a class that I teach, my goal for the program is to produce people who are going to be able to do more and do more better. So when people come into the program, they're not necessarily looking for that piece of paper. Yeah, that's certainly a nice thing to have, but it's okay. I want to learn how to deal with conflict better. I want to learn how to coach myself and coach people around me, no matter what level they're at, better. I want to learn how to make decisions that are moral and ethically grounded without wondering, am I doing the right thing? Because I understand kind of the process to go through to get there. And these are all things that they make people better. And I I know I've said that, but it's really, how can we go out in the community and do good work? And that's part of what Albertus is about. It's part of our mission to go out there and help people to get better so that they can be stronger, a stronger presence in their community.
Well, I'm a big fan of Sarah Barr, who connected us,
Absolutely.
and she works with you
Mhm.
at Albertus. And I've known many students that have gone through your program, perhaps, and maybe not your particular program, but the programs there. And
They're all great.
they're fine individuals, and they are very motivated to become better and all those sorts of things. So I definitely understand that. Talk a little bit about your book. Maybe give
Absolutely.
some highlights, and why did you write it?
And we'll get that answer after a brief word from our commercial sponsors.
NASA is always working harder to be your carrier of choice. We offer insurance products that can help you meet your retirement goals, such as protecting your savings, securing lifetime income, or paying for healthcare costs. We're dedicated to providing best-in-class service and are keeping things simple, and we'll have your back. We have around 400,000 policyholders and contract holders and have been doing this for a long time, 170 years, but we remain humble enough to always try to improve. For more information, visit nfg.com. Nassau insurance products are issued by Nassau Life and Annuity Company of Hartford, Connecticut, Nassau Life Insurance Company, East Greenbush, New York, or Nassau Life Insurance Company of Kansas, Overland Park, Kansas. Subsidiaries of Nassau Financial Group. Products are not available in all areas. Policyholder counts are for all Nassau companies as of September 30th, 2022, and are subject to change.
So I wrote it because it was time. It was time to put some more thoughts, pen to paper, and share some more ideas. My first book came out over a decade ago, which was called Lead Me Out to the Ball Game. And that was amazing. That was amazing because I got to go out and I interviewed over 100 Major League Baseball players, 17 Major League Baseball managers. I went into the dugouts, I went into the clubhouses, and I was sitting with these people who I'd been watching on TV and I don't want to say idolizing, but
Yeah, I love
enchanted
that.
with,
Yeah,
for so many years. So that was an amazing experience. And that was, like I said, about 10 years ago. And for the past 10 years, I've been trying to think of something that I could do that's just as exciting, just as interesting. And it took a little while because that was so much fun. And I started writing a book during COVID, and I came up with this idea of the Leadership Doc's dose of leadership. So I'm known as the Leadership Doc. That's my company. So I came up with this, the Leadership Doc's dose of leadership. And I started writing a book about the Leadership Doc's prescription for success. And as I was writing it, I started writing about these 5Gs that I thought about. And I actually, which I don't recommend doing, after you write a couple of chapters, scrapping it and starting over with a new focus. So that's what I did, though, because I realized that the 5Gs to me were more powerful than my prescription for success. So I came up with the 5Gs of leadership. And my 5Gs are: leaders need to get up, they need to get out there, they need to get to know their people, give them what they need, and get out of the way. And leadership in 5G is all about that. It's about how do we understand our own purpose, which is the get up part, kind of understanding ourselves and understanding what drives us and how we can use our passions to create success for ourselves and the people around us. Once we understand that, we need to get out there. We need to start talking to people and talking to the people around us and getting to know them, because every person is different. Every person you deal with, if you have more than one child, you don't treat them both the same way. You're not going to get what you want. If you have different employees, if you want something, you've got to understand the differences between them. So we have to get out there. We have to get to know them. We have to give them those things that they need, right? Provide them with the resources, provide them with the tools. That's what leadership is about. We talk about it in our program about servant leadership. We have a class in servant leadership, which perhaps some of your audience is familiar with. It's a big, lots of theory in it, big books that were written about it. I make it very simple. The leader's number one job is to serve their people.
Yeah.
Make sure your people have everything that they need to be successful. And once you do that, you get out of the way. And that doesn't mean go, sit in an office and not open your door. It means allow them to thrive. It means allow them to do what they have to do, make mistakes. Be there, though, to support them, to guide them, and provide them with those resources. And that's where the legacy comes in as well, when you can sit back and say, look what I did. I don't need to be out there every day. I can sit back, let them know I'm here, but let them do their thing, because you know what? Then I can go out and think strategically. And when I coach executives at high levels, I tell them, I want you to go out on the golf course once in a while. That's your job. Go out there and talk to people, generate business, think big picture ideas, because you've set up your organization to be successful so that you can go do that and generate more business. And it's a tough thing for people to do as they move into those later stages in their career. When they are moving up towards that back nine, as you said, but say, you know what, I've done what I have to do. I've done it well. And now what's my next chapter? And my next chapter is big picture strategic thinking, so that I can continue to grow my empire, whatever that might be, however, whatever size that is.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. And you said, I did work so I started my career as an entrepreneur. And so I was in my mid 30s by the time for the first time I had a real job interview, because I had to, go out there in the workforce. It was a little scary. And I felt ridiculous, because I'm like, wow, I think I was 37. It's 37 and I'm worried about a job interview, because I'd never had one before, really. But I did work for a gentleman, and he said exactly what you did about getting out of the way in a positive instance. I think where you're going with that, which is, you hire people because they're smart and you trust them. And so, yes, you have to review what they do to a degree, inspect what you expect. I've heard that one too.
Yep.
But you do need to get out of the way. So I really like that. And I think as you move from, management, if you will, into leadership, and maybe you can talk about that. And maybe, is there a difference? Because I know I hear that interchangeably.
Yep.
Individuals really need to go and lead differently, or they need to really lead versus manage. And again, if you could talk about that, because that just came to my mind.
Yeah. So the first thing I want to say to that is we need both. We need the management skills, which is, holding people accountable, making sure things are set up structurally the right way, and making people have the tangible resources. We need the leaders to take it to the next level. We need the leaders to really inspire their people and give them the opportunity to be successful, not just hold them accountable for what they're not doing. And the management skills are so important, right? We need to do that, because otherwise things aren't going to get done. But we also need the people to complement those managers. So what I often say is, it's kind of like, I'm not saying that a COO is not a leader, a chief operation officer, but I always say, your CEO is the one leading. The COO is making sure things are getting done with the vision that you created. Again, I'm not saying the COOs who are listening here are not leaders. I bet you are. But that's kind of your focus. Your focus is more on the detail and the operational side versus the vision, the strategy, etc.
Do you go over in your book or in your class that you teach about how, we're all different as individuals, so we all need to find the style of leadership that is comfortable? You talked about servant leadership. I actually worked for someone also in my past that's how he described himself, serving others. And really, that was one of the first times I had heard about that. I just was, going along, managing and leading, trying to be my authentic self. Would you talk a little bit about how, what that process may look like when you're either in the classroom or it's in your book or you're working with executives as a coach?
So, I want to kind of back into that a little bit. So when we think about leadership, and we talked about servant leadership, which is such a powerful concept, and transformationally, there's all different styles of leadership. There's no one best one, because the fact is we cannot go in and be a servant leader all the time. We can't go and be a transformational leader trying to change everything all the time. We have to think about the situation we're in and the people we're leading. Sometimes our people lead, and I'm going to say a word people don't like, they need to be micromanaged. And people don't like that word, but you know what? If somebody's new to a position, they need to have somebody who's kind of right there on top of things, helping them to develop in a positive way, not in a bad way like we all kind of imagine it. But it's such a negative connotation, but sometimes we need to do that. And sometimes, and I work a lot with law enforcement, sometimes when I work with police chiefs and we talk about how he's going to get his people to share their ideas and we bring them into a room, that's great. And he's very participative and gets people involved. When they're out and they're trying to, take care of business out on the road, he or she's not going to turn around and ask his people what they think. He's going to say, let's go. We have to do this now. And people understand this is what we need to do because the boss is saying it. We can do those things if we establish our relationship with them first. And that's why I talk about relationship all the time. We want our people to have a relationship with us so they trust us and they believe that if we tell them to do something, they're going to do it because we have their best interest at heart, not because we're the boss. We should never be resting on we're the boss. And that's something I talk about a lot in the program with my clients, et cetera. Because again, I think we're getting to a point where people are understanding that more. But a lot of us, who've grown up from different generations, it's old school. Your boss tells you to do something, you do it because you're going to get your paycheck at the end of the week.
Right.
There's much more. And if you have an organization where people are coming to work just for the paycheck, they're not going to thrive. They're going to do enough work to get the paycheck and not get fired. We need more. And we need more at every single level in the organization for the organization to be successful and to thrive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You talked a lot about trust too, which I do find interesting, and relationships, right? Because at the end of the day, it is all about relationships. So if people know, like, and trust you, most people will do anything for you. And this is an odd comment to make, perhaps, but I'm late to the party, but I started watching Ted Lasso, and I'm not a really big soccer fan or football. I am a big sports fan in general. I do love baseball. I love basketball. I love lacrosse and, all kinds of things. But what I'm finding so intriguing about Ted Lasso, and I know it's just a series, is the positivity that he has, that he uses, and that he goes about it in a very interesting way. And people don't always see it coming because of his finesse and his style. So I'm very interested in that. And of course, I smile a lot because in the series, he goes through a lot with people not treating him so well, but he just doesn't lose faith in people. And he navigates things quite well. And I just find it all very intriguing. And I'm bringing it up today because it's really about leadership.
Yep. It absolutely is. And I'm going to bring us back to baseball because as you're saying this, I'm thinking of one of my favorite quotes from the book when I wrote Lead Me Out to the Ball Game. So I grew up as a Mets fan. So I had the opportunity to interview Davey Johnson, the former major league manager and Mets manager, Nationals manager at Team USA. That was one of my highlights, being able to sit down with him. And he said something to me that I'm not exaggerating at all. Every time I say this quote, I get chills. And I use this quote in almost every keynote I do, every class, every workshop. Because what he said to me was, I don't care how long you've been in the game or what kind of success you've had in the game. Every day you have to gain their trust, and every day you have to gain their respect. And I talk to my clients and my students about that a lot. Imagine how it changes your mindset and changes your actions if every day, and I'm going to challenge your audience now, if every day when you're driving into work, you're not thinking about what you have to do, how good you're going to do it. You're thinking about, what can I do today to earn the trust and the respect of the people around me? Just think about that, Mary. Think about how it changes your actions when you're trying to earn trust and respect, not just trying to do a good job. And it really does change the way that we perform. And it's so powerful, I think, to me.
I hadn't thought of it quite that way. I know one of the things I love to do is I love to talk to people throughout our company that I don't know. Sometimes people think I'm a little kooky, but I'm like, hey, how's it going today? And I introduce myself in the elevator or wherever I am. And I love people. I want to learn about them, but I hadn't quite thought of it that way in terms of like, how am I going to earn their trust every day? How am I going to show up and have a positive impact? So what you're saying is very inspirational. And I know as we're getting to the end of our conversation, I feel like, maybe we can have a part 2 and have you back on, Howard, because I think we just scratched the surface today. What are some highlights you would like our audience to take away? Now, again, we tend to focus on, people either thinking about retirement or in retirement. Again, doesn't mean people are living longer. And so you really do have to think about that. But what kind of thoughts do you have as we close our conversation?
I think the biggest thing for your audience and for everybody is, don't stop. You have so much to offer, at every level. And if you are on the back 9 or the back 3 at that, at some point, and you're retiring, thinking about retiring, I encourage you so much to go back to your organization, or go into your organization, go into your supervisor, if you're the boss, whatever it is, and say, okay, what can I do to really leave that lasting impact? It's not about the employee handbook. It's not about how you do things. It's the know-how. And that's what it is. It's not the knowledge, but it's the know-how. How do you really get stuff done in the organization? How do you really get stuff done to be successful in any organization? And when you have that experience, a lot of times it's been my experience, Mary, that people don't realize it. And they don't realize what they really have to give. And what I tell them when they say something like that to me is, just tell me a story. Tell me a story how you got to where you are. And once people start talking, as you know, they can keep going. And people tend to like talking about themselves when they're given the right prompts. So tell me a story. Go out there, start telling stories about your experiences. And I guarantee you that other folks who are listening are going to be interested, and they're going to pay attention and learn from them.
I agree. I think everyone remembers stories. They don't remember necessarily numbers. Sometimes they do if they're integrated into stories well, but they really do remember the people and the places and the descriptors that people use to get excited or inspired. So we ask every guest at the end of our program one question. And it just kind of goes like this, Howard. So you have a very interesting background. You're very accomplished. You could do anything at all that you want. Why do you wake up every day and do what you do?
I like helping people. I love talking about leadership, and I get so much satisfaction when, after a coaching call or whether it be the same day or later on, somebody sends me another message. And I got one today, an email saying, hey, I tried what we talked about. I went to my boss and I shared this idea and it went great. And now I'm taking on a new project. And just having that ability to help others be successful and really understand the reasons behind it, right? Not just do things, but understand it, because it's not about business. It's not about work. That's just a small part of our life. And we have to remember that. But the things that we talk about as leaders and as leadership experts and in the MSMOL and Albertus, the Master of Science in Management and Org Leadership, they go to your personal life as well. And they help not just you, but everyone around you to be successful and to have that, like you said, the positive outlook. And that's huge. And we didn't get into that, and I can talk for an hour about that. But creating a positive culture and positive communication has such a great impact.
Yeah, let's talk about that next time, because that is one of my favorite topics. And I know we would have a great discussion. So we'll have to have you back on. Howard, thank you for spending time with me today. I know you're very busy, and I do appreciate that. And if individuals want to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Yeah, there's many different ways, but I would say probably through LinkedIn. If you're on LinkedIn, just look up my name, Howard Fero. You can also send me an email at hfero, HFERO, at albertus.edu.
Okay, that's great. To our listeners, thank you. Tell us what we're doing right. Tell us what we're doing wrong. Keep listening. Refer us to your friends and family and your colleagues. And again, Howard, thank you for joining me on another episode of the Prime Life Podcast. Everyone have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Mary.
Remember to subscribe to the Prime Life Podcast anywhere you find podcasts. You can find all of our episodes, contact information, and more on our website, primelifepodcast.com. Stay connected with us. Follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.